As a sales rep, when it comes towards modernizing your sales strategy, specifically going for enterprise type of accounts, there are several things you can do. And on this episode, we're going to break those things down, give you the guidance that you need to make sure that not only are you getting in contact with those people, but that also you're standing out from the pack. You're going to love it. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have an amazing guest. His name is Jesse Rothstein, and Jesse is he's a friend of mine that I got a chance to connect with from his experience with LinkedIn. But Jesse is all about helping enterprise sellers, specifically folks who are trying to modernize their sales strategies to make sure that they're doing the things that are working right now. We don't want you to follow out-of-date old practices that are not being effective. So Jesse's going to share some stuff with you that you can take and apply. How can we modernize our enterprise sales strategy? And maybe what you can do is give me an example of what a modern seller, what are some things modern sellers are doing? And then maybe we can break that down with some of those strategies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's three core pillars that it starts with. First and foremost is digital brand of the seller. So the seller understands very, very early and often within their process, if you will, that their brand, their own personal digital brand, is the brand of record that the buyer or group of buyers are going to evaluate when they begin their research process. So if you Google search your name and you don't like what happens to appear on that Google search, and I think in the professional context, it's, what's the LinkedIn profile look like? That's what most people are going to these days. Digital brand has never been more important because that's how the buyer is going to make their first impression of you as a seller. They're not going to take that first meeting. They're not going to shake your hand. They're not going to ask you to come into the office and have a introductory conversation. So digital brand is paramount. Second, I think, is network. So modern enterprise sellers they've always realized that it's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know. And I think that taking this to another level in this sort of modern world is constantly referral selling, constantly leveraging your network, constantly leveraging people that you know and trust to help you get wider and deeper across organizations. And that's a daily exercise of looking to leverage your company's network and your own network in any way, shape, or form. And then thirdly, which I don't think gets talked about enough, but I do think it's a big differentiator for modern sellers, is content. Do you have a thought out, pragmatic, consistent strategy around content? Because when your buyer does do their research on you, they're going to want to know if you have an opinion. They're going to want to know if you're sharing information about your company, about your industry, even about you as a person. And if you're not necessarily out there sharing your thoughts, being interesting, having a perspective, I don't want to say that you're just like everyone else, but you're kind of just like everyone else. And your buyer, it's just the world we live in. People want to do business with interesting people, and I think content is a way to do that. It doesn't require as much time as people think, but it's an important tactic that doesn't get talked about enough for the modern enterprise seller. In the modern world that we live in, where things are very much more over Zoom or very much over more of a video conference, 30, 40, 50 years ago, that buyer made their first impression based on how you looked when you walked into that office. Did you have a firm handshake? Were you well put together? Were you dressed well? Did you make a positive physical, first impression? Those days, I don't want to say they're over, but they're becoming less and less, where more and more buyers are saying, we don't need to necessarily get together in person. I want to do my research up front, and I will. And before I even get on the phone with you, I'm going to evaluate you digitally. I'm going to Google your name. In the professional context, I'm going to look at you probably via your LinkedIn profile and see what you're all about. So if you're a seller that isn't buying into that digital brand, it's sort of the equivalent of 30, 40, 50 years ago, showing up to that first meeting in your pajamas, not showered, and having really bad breath.
Number two, let's talk about networking because, bro, I love my boy, my friend Bob Berg, and he talks about the Go Giver, and it's such a powerful concept. Folks might say again, like, is that really modern referrals? Like a referral, are people really doing referrals nowadays and just go and search for something? Talk to me about that.
Well, I think the principle I'm speaking of is it's always easier to get business from people you are currently doing business with or have done business with before. So that's kind of what I'm alluding to as it relates to referrals. If your customer base has a positive experience with you and your company, there's a greater chance they're going to refer you to other people within their company or even other companies where you might be a fit, that your product or service provides. So that to me is where a lot of modern sellers, enterprise or not, can and should be spending more of their time, because it's just so much easier. That first conversation via a referral is so different than just trying to go in cold and picking up the phone or sending emails and whatnot. And it's an outbound sales skill that often doesn't get measured or charted as outbound work. You know what I mean?
The last area is content, and boy, I like this one, Jesse. Talk to me about this. The third pillar of this, the modern selling strategy here, is content. Why? And go a little deeper. I think you kind of allude to it already.
Yeah, I mean, most people, most sellers do not have a consistent, pragmatic, thought out content strategy that they are wiring into their daily, weekly, monthly routine. So just by doing it, you're separating yourself. The other piece is you're allowing yourself to take a position, have an opinion, and put yourself out there and get conversation started that is around you, that's around your company, that's around your industry, that ultimately is going to lead to more conversations, more engagement. And the way I would think about it kind of in the modern day is I would remind people what we did back in the day is, like, we would go to trade shows, right? Or we would go to public forums where we could, talk about our product or service, or hand out a brochure, or do live demos, or whatever it might be. And you were putting out content at those trade shows during those conversations of, Donald, let me show you what our product does, or hey, would you be interested in taking a pamphlet, or hey, let me share this customer story, and people would walk by your booth and you'd have a little conversation about it. That's the modern day version of having a consistent content strategy. The benefit now is that all you need is an internet connection, and you can sort of make it happen as long as you're organized and consistent about it. But it's not necessarily you creating your own content every single day of the week, although some salespeople do that. It's more about taking other content, being a facilitator, being a distributor, and in some cases being a creator, but putting yourself out there in a way that allows you to have a position, have an opinion, be a thought leader, and just take a stand. I think people respect that.
Jesse, if folks want to get in touch with you or to connect with you and learn about what you guys are doing, what's the best way for them to go about doing so?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jesse Rothstein on LinkedIn, easy way to connect with me. Empire Selling is the name of the company. Also the author of the book, Carry That Quota, which is carrythatquota.com. But I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I would say start out on LinkedIn, just Jesse Rothstein is the profile, and that's probably the easiest and quickest way, Donald.
Oh, yes. Come on, man. That idea of your digital presence is so critical. Now, Jesse comes with a lot of experience, again, not only from his own practice, but also working with organizations where he's been able to see it and get data, and also working with clients that he's seeing this information right there. Like, this is stuff that's working. So create content. I want you to make sure you're using the idea of referral, that principle, and make sure you have a digital presence that's going to stand out. As always, I share this stuff because I want to help you. I want you to find more of your ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.